Hello, Pier youth. I hope you guys have been enjoying the book of Esther so far. Today we are reading Esther chapter 4, and my dog is chewing her bone really loudly. Let me take that away from her really quick. Bone is taken away and we are all good now. Okay, so chapter 4 is probably one of my favorite chapters in the book of Esther. I just really think that it shows a lot of emotion, and it shows the importance of togetherness and unity. And so I'm going to give a quick summary of chapter 4, and then I'm just going to highlight something that the Lord pointed out to me today. So Uncle Morty, that's what I call Mordecai. Uncle Morty heard of the new pursuit of the Jews and of the decree that the king put into place to kill all the Jews. And so he went into the city. He began to cry out with a loud and bitter cry, it says. In fact, everywhere that this decree was put in place, it was full of Jews that were mourning. And it says that they were mourning with fasting and weeping and lamenting. And so Esther's friends heard about this. They heard that the Jews were in an uproar, that they were mourning, and they went to tell Esther because they knew that she knew Mordecai. So they're like, hey, Mordecai, he's not doing too hot. So Esther tried to help Mordecai to give him these different clothes because in this culture, sackcloth and ashes, which is what Mordecai put on, that is a traditional way of expressing grief. And so there were like these laws that you couldn't be within a certain distance to the kingdom gate, and Mordecai was in that distance, and he was wearing sackcloth and ashes. And so Esther was worried for him, so she tried to give him different clothes. He didn't accept. So Esther sent her dude Hathach, I think that's how you say it, to talk to Mordecai, and he pretty much went up to Mordecai and he's like, hey, what's up? Mordecai's like, hey, this is what's going on. I'm a Jew, and there's a decree that is going to destroy all of the Jews. And so this dude went back to Esther, told Esther. Oh, and first time, Mordecai asked this guy to like go back to Esther and be like, hey, can you tell her to beg on our behalf to the king to make this right, to not destroy the Jews. And so Hathach went back to Esther and said, hey, this is what's going on. This is what Mordecai said. Just think about it. And so Esther was afraid because she hadn't been called to the king in 30 days. And if you aren't called by the king to the king, then there is another law that you would be put to death. So she was afraid to go to him because she didn't want to die. But Mordecai really asked her to think it through because he knew about this too. And so she thought about it, and she told Hathach, she said, hey, go to Mordecai, tell him that for the next 3 days, tell him and the rest of the Jews to fast on my behalf for the next 3 days. I'll do the same thing. I'll tell the people around me to do the same thing. Fast on my behalf, and after these 3 days, I'll go to the king and I'll talk to him. And so Hathach went back to Mordecai, and he said, hey, fast for 3 days on Esther's behalf, and then she'll go talk to the king. And he did. And so he went around and told the Jews to fast on Esther's behalf. And that's where it ends off. So kind of two things that stood out to me is just the very beginning when, when Mordecai and the rest of the Jews were mourning. For me, and I'm assuming for a lot of you, it's really hard to express emotion. And in a lot of ways, it's hard to like pinpoint, like, why am I sad? Why am I angry? Why am I upset? Why am I happy even? And so I think that it's really cool how they were able to cry But they weren't just stuck in that mourning situation, but they took it further. And as they were mourning, they were fasting. And as they were mourning, they were weeping. And as they were mourning, they were lamenting, which lamenting is being honest and real with God. It's expressing emotion to God. And so that's super encouraging to me, that as I'm so confused with my emotions, I can go to God and I can be real and I can be honest and I can be raw, and he'll be there to listen. And it's okay to be upset with God. It's okay to be angry with God. It's okay to be confused by God. But to keep those emotions inside and just hold those there, that's what's not okay. Because he does want to work that out for your good and his glory. And then the other thing that stood out to me is when Connor did like the overview of Esther, I guess like 4 or 5 days ago, he had mentioned that Esther is the only book that doesn't mention God. And in verse 14, I'll just read that whole verse for you guys. It says, this is what Mordecai had said to Esther, or had like wanted to relay to Esther. And it says, for not good at transitions, messed up, had to start it over. Here's verse 14. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. So there's no specific mention of God there. But Mordecai is so sure that the Jews are going to survive, whether it's from Esther's help or not. He is so sure that there will be relief and deliverance for the Jews, one way or another. Yeah, he believes that this is a promise from God. And so he has a deep belief that he and the rest of the Jews are going to survive. And then, how cool is it that he tells Esther, he's like, who knows if this is why you've been brought into the kingdom? He's like, there might be so many other reasons why you've come here, why you were crowned queen, why you were crowned queen, but this could be the reason why you were brought into the kingdom, is to save the Jews, is to save your people. And so again, this is just a hint of Mordecai's belief in God, and in Mordecai's trust in God. And so, yeah. So I guess from those two, highlights that I had, first one is specifically in this time of quarantine and isolation and confusion, are you going to God with your emotion? Are you being real with him? Are you being honest? But are you just sitting there and just feeling deeply? Or are you pairing that with a deep trust in God? And so are you praying with that emotion? Are you fasting with that emotion? Are you trying and seeking to strengthen your relationship and your trust and your faithfulness in Jesus? And then with this other one, I really want to encourage you guys to pray and think through that last part of verse 14, and who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. If you're in a situation, whether it's now or a week from now or a year from now or 10 years from now, if you're in a hard situation, I really want to encourage you to seek truth in that situation. Because I'm not saying that all hard things are because God wants you to go through hard things, but I have no doubt that he's going to use those hard things to strengthen your reliance on him, and so that you may have a deeper trust in him. And so as you're going through hard things, I want you to think about that and be like, okay, why has God brought me into this situation? What does he want me to learn through this? Because I am confident that he is going to teach you a lot. And so I hope that you guys are enjoying Esther. I hope that chapter 4 has been an encouragement. Yeah, I miss you guys like crazy. Can't wait to see you guys. Love you a lot. Okay, bye. Sorry, this was a hot mess. Okay, bye-bye.